sleeper must awake.
About 20 years ago, I was in a car with my friend who was the singer of our band back then. And that friend was a videographer. He had made his own movies. And he had this particular talent to focus on, not focus, but to detect scenes in normal life that had a specific kind of magic to them. Or poetry, maybe, is another word that we could use. So that one day we're driving downtown Montreal. Imagine a cold, very cold winter day, very sunny. And we stop on a red light. And right across the street from us, there's a guy there. I hope it doesn't sound wrong, but typical Montreal homeless guy with a big blue parka, big dirty parka, kind of slouched over, right next to an overflowing garbage can and a street lamp. And he's just standing there waiting. I didn't really notice him or the scene, but my friend did with his super ability. So he looks at the guy and he says, I'm gonna say it in French, so in Québécois actually. So he said, "Il est bien beau lui," which is kind of hard to translate, but basically it meant, look at how good that guy looks, you know. I understood instantly that he was talking about that scene, and for sure it had this kind of poetry to it, of this guy who maybe had a very eventful or difficult life, and he's just calmly standing there in the sun with this steam rising from his mouth, and we're just there on the red light looking at him. So for me, that was a spiritual event. I know that my friend doesn't consider himself a spiritual person and has no interest in anything esoteric or whatever, you know. But he had this sense for the magic of that moment, of that expressiveness, of that, you know, there was something primordial or archetypal that was embodied in that moment, and he could see it. And for me, that's what I describe as a spiritual occurrence or experience, you know. So I realized at that moment that this magic or this spirit, if we want to call it that because of spirituality, it's always there, and for all of us, not for just people who call themselves pompously or not mystics, you know. So today we're talking with Jill Emery, who is an artist, a lively and creative person who speaks the language of artists. And me, Dominic Vallee, host of Hopscotch Chronicles podcast, in this 12th episode, came in with a mystic's mind and a mystic's vocabulary, I would say, you know. But it's interesting what came up from it. First of all, I learned that I shouldn't just take for granted that people use the same words to describe the same hard to describe things, you know? So, yeah, I did have to make clear that when I talk about magic, I don't mean prestidigitation or illusionism, but I mean the magic that's sometimes referred to as magic with a K, you know? But once we kind of tuned together, I think we knew that we were more or less talking about those same elusive things. So I hope you enjoy this discussion, as unhinged as it was at times. I mean, Jill was asking me questions, which is something that kind of startled me a little. And in my lack of experience, it made me a bit nervous at first. But it's all in the learning, and it's all on me. And I'm happy to share this experience with you today, as imperfect as it was. It was still beautiful. And Jill is a beautiful person, and I really loved this exchange. So I'm sharing it with you with pride. I guess that's the right word. All right, so here's a little bio that I wrote for Jill. Jill Emery is an accomplished American musician, recognized for her significant contributions to the alternative and indie rock scenes of the 90s. Most notably, she was an early member of the band Hole alongside Courtney Love, and subsequently was part of the dreamy rock sound of Mazzy Star, but also contributed to other impactful music acts such as Super Heroines and Shadow Project. Jill currently resides in Palm Springs, California, and is now fully devoted to her passion for visual arts and painting. There you go. So it's already long enough. The usual things. Like if you like, dislike if you don't like, comment if you're on YouTube, or leave a review also if you're on Apple Podcasts. I think it really helps bringing attention to the show. And if you want to go one step further in nourishing the Hopscotch Chronicles adventure, you can go on Patreon, Patreon/Dominic Vallee. I couldn't remember. And there you go. Okay, that's enough. So, let's proceed with today's discussion with Jill Emery. Enjoy. Hello, Jill Emery.
Yes.
It's weird just saying hi again because we just
because we already had a little conversation.
15 minutes.
I was like, hello, sir. Nice to meet you.
Yes, person
Montreal.
whom I've never been talking to ever before.
Yeah.
So from what we were saying before, we're both in a similar setting, even though we're on opposite sides, not even just of the country, but we're both experiencing gray days. Because I'm in Montreal, and you're in
In
LA,
No,
in California, not in LA.
I
Sorry.
lived in LA for my life, and then I moved to Palm Springs, of all places. So
Okay.
as a kid, when I went here, my family took us here. I don't know if you know Palm Springs or hot weather, but it gets
Kind of.
well, it was like 120 when, and then I know you guys do different. You don't go, 120 degrees. You say something about Celsius or something like that, probably, or
A
Fahrenheit.
lot of people are gonna get it, even
See?
though
Okay, so it was very hot when I was a kid. I was probably about 9, and I walked from the lounge chair to the pool, and I singed my feet. It was so hot, and I was like, "Who would live here? This is horrible." And then I moved here like 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm like, it takes you have to get used to it, but I like the quietness, so it's good in that respect. Yeah.
Well, you know what? You're kind of driving to a question the first question I wanted to ask you. Although I wonder if let's go with it. So there's a podcast I really like, and it's the only time, for anyone listening who know that podcast, this is the only time I'm gonna do this. There's a show I really like that's called Rune Soup, and it's about magic and some paranormal stuff. But and the host is called Gordon White, and he's a chaos magician, but that doesn't really matter, I guess. He's got this traditional first question that I love, and I've been struggling to find my own traditional first question, and it hasn't been good so far. So for this episode, I'm gonna steal his question, but I have a good reason for it. It's because his show is more with occultists and, magician occultists, shamans and stuff like that. But today I'm bringing in a musician and a painter, an artist, which to me is completely connected with spirituality in a deeper way. So I love his question when he asks it to all those people. I'm going to ask it to you, Jill.
Oh God. Okay, I'm waiting for this one.
Jill Emery, were you a weird kid?
Oh, he asked that question? Okay. And now that you're asking it, and then we'll find your specific question eventually. It'll come out. But was I a weird kid? I have to say, I don't know if that's something to be proud of, but I think I was definitely offbeat. Yeah. Sandwiched in between two brothers that were like a little bit more not as weird. Not less important, just not, obviously I think weird is good, it sounds like. But I also, what is that called? I feel like I felt like it was hard to find someone, friends or anyone in general, that got me. Like it felt like it was always in my head. Oh yeah, I get it. But it was hard to find people that were relating. So once I did find people like that, it was amazing. It was like just this opening. And so, yeah, I guess so.
Like I had an inkling, that question would get, because most of his guests, most of them answer that they were weird kids,
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, well, I mean, I didn't grow up with my nose in esoteric books, or a lot of them are into of his guests are into like sci-fi stuff, like kind of more a bit more nerdy in a way.
Then
Not to be disparaging, but yeah, I mean, I was more of an artist type, and I was damn weird.
Okay, so you did feel like you had that, but that wasn't your vein of wasn't the occult at an early age.
Not at all. Because I did well from an early. My interest started in my teenage years, but
Do you think
when I was
music?
real young, I was.
But do you think music brought in that interest in that in the occult, or do you think which one would? I mean, I don't even know if that's the right word, because I remember when I was in this band called the Super Heroines, it had a dark edge, like a Black Sabbath goth, and even I used to go to the occult stores in LA, in Hollywood, and it was like, my God, I'm in here and there's all these like sticky incense in jars with colors and all these crazy books, but something, I mean, too, but I like astrology, but occult always had a darker underbelly to me, and I couldn't say I even know how to describe it, but I don't think astrology is under that. But I mean, how did you get introduced? Or I mean, obviously you're also listening to a podcast that focuses. I mean,
it's really cool that we're talking about that. Although I'm sure people are here to hear you answer the questions, but we're gonna get it. We're gonna get there anyways. So, well, for me, like I won't go into too much details for real though, but it's not really the occult, but for me, it's more like I guess I would call it having a sense for the magic in life. Whatever's. And it's just in the late years. I'm looking for the right words. Maybe in the past 5 to 6 years that I've started being interested in magic, in the practice of magic, and I don't even do it myself, but I'm really we have a little cat visit right.
I know mine's walking around here, and so they might be that.
Sure. But I just noticed when people talk about how magic works for them, a lot of it is akin to how art works. And so I think a lot of people, when they do art, whether painting or music, they don't know that they do magic,
Because I don't picture magic. I don't know what magic. I'm not sure, but when you described it as the magic of life, I'm like, okay, I'm in. I got that. But when you say magic, like people might picture, like a traditional, someone doing these illusions and stuff like that, or trick. Yeah. But you're talking about, or a combo.
Yeah, I should specify that when I when I say magic, I mean not like parlor tricks, and not either not like Harry Potter or Houdini. Yeah. Some people say like they add the K at the end, magic, MAGICK, just to make sure that it's clear. I should have been more clear. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. I was just curious because and when you say magic into art, I could see that. But I'm reading this book right now about feminist art, and I don't know much about it, but I'm reading it, and it's fascinating how people or women that were doing this art or are doing this art, it doesn't seem like magic at all. It seems very calculated to express the idea of what they're trying to say. So,
yeah.
But there's also art that has had a spiritual element to it as well. And now I'm not necessarily on feminist art, but, and again, I'm pretty much self-studied. And so I just go to the library and look at books. I haven't been taught, I'm learning as I go, and I'm going to be 62 and I'm still learning because I didn't fall into a category of being taught this stuff. So, magic, painting, but life in general.
Exactly,
and yesterday, it was weird. I was driving down the street, and I know I shouldn't do this because it's like an empath situation, which can be a little bit debilitating. I'm driving and I see this person walking their dog, and all of a sudden my mind just gets sad, and this song is on, and I can't even remember what song it was, and it just triggers like, oh no, if she dies and then the dog's left behind, or if the dog dies, is someone going to help her through that? And so I'm like, oh my God, why am I? But it is a part of life. If you're an empath, that's what happens, but you just don't want it to debilitate you,
Yeah. I don't think I should. I think people are going to be mad at me if we don't get at least a little into history.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what is?
And because I mean, yeah, it's totally surreal for me to talk with you right now, because like, especially whole. Yeah, I should tell people that you've been a part of at least two very big bands that are very well known, that have made their marks on the music world, especially in the 90s, I guess, which are, you've played in Hole.
Yes.
People know Courtney Love, all the stories.
Yeah.
And also you've played in Mazzy Star, which are two bands that have been... I was going to say they've been influential on my life, but it's not even enough, because I see how my growth has been informed by the kind of music and the kind of lyrics and the kind of moods, that were that I was constantly surrounding myself in, So it's weird, this I'm speaking to this person who was a part of this growing, but in such a deep way, because music was a very serious thing for me,
Oh, so, yeah,
and so to me it's interesting to talk with you also, because you were, when I was preparing for the show, I was kind of stalking you. Low-key stalking you. Not you. I mean, on the...
Well, I mean, I watched some of your podcasts. I mean, it's good to get familiar. I was like, what am I doing? So anyway, I'm...
Stalking might be a big word.
I'm not that scared, but...
No. But I've seen your name on so many Wikipedia pages, but you don't have your own page. But all the bands, I've seen it on, of course, on Whole, the page for Whole, Mazzy Star, Super Heroines, Christian Death. So you're kind of all over there, and I'm going towards a question now.
Okay. Wow.
It feels to me like you were in it, but from what I gather, also from interviews that I've listened of you, do you feel like you were also kind of a spectator of all this? Because it felt to me like you were kind of in it, but also not an outsider, but just maybe I'm just completely wrong.
No, I mean, I think that's valid. I mean, I felt like an outsider pretty much throughout everything. There are a few people I got close to. And I also had this protective shield. I feel much more open now and not so concerned at, as maybe as you age, you're just like, what was I so concerned about? And what I was kind of protective over was the music when I wrote or would co-write or I felt protective over the music. Well, it's really hard to protect something like that. And I don't mean just copywriting. I mean whether someone completely changes it or you just can't really, like, creativity in music to me got damaged by whether it was lawyers, managers, record companies, or egos. So you couldn't really protect it from that. And so it became just like a nightmare to me. I love music and I would love to play again, but under all those circumstances, it was just so stressful. And Exene from X had contacted me about a month ago, and it may never happen, but she's like, hey, let's do some music. And I loved X. Like, to me, that band, I grew up going to shows when I was a kid, so I'd go see them. Not a kid, 16, but
yeah.
So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Now, I don't know if it'll happen, but the point is, I wouldn't just do music with anybody because it's very, very difficult to convey what you're into, what you want to do, like immerse your energies together. So that's where music became just not fun anymore. But ego is another thing. And to me, yes, you have to have an ego, but not a out of control one, that it wasn't even, it became like manipulation and cruelty. And so that's kind of what let the air out on music for me. And I played well into my 40s, trying to get bands together and co-write with singers and stuff like that. But, again, all that stuff came in and just damaged it, So now when I've always done art my whole life, whether, yes, it's morphed because I've really wanted to put more of spiritual energy into painting, as well as when I do animals, it was like, because I'm an animal rights person and I want them to have a voice and not just look at them as, like a donkey is a slave or, just like they have meaning, they have love, they have, look at elephants. They're totally emotional, intelligent beings, and people slaughter them. So anyways, that's where I started focusing on art. And I felt like, okay, I can control the creative aspect. And I could take all the blame if someone doesn't like it. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter if they don't like it, because when you go to a museum or a gallery, you could be like, God, I love that. It speaks to me. And your friend would be like, I don't know about that. So you can't take anything personal if someone doesn't care about your work. But when someone gets it, it's a great feeling. So
it's interesting because already you've addressed maybe how you've grown as an artist, at least not being too specific, but you kind of brushed on the subject. And it's something I've been curious about because in the last few years I've been contemplating how it was that I grew, like as a teenager with all this. I was like a big, the most influential part of my cultural life, I would say, the most formative would be clearly the quote unquote the grunge era, and I say era and not the music style, but all this, because a lot of bands were kind of adjacent, and for me, like especially growing up in a small town, like we didn't know as much as and a French speaking town also, like there's all the details of how the scene was and stuff like that. Like we didn't really know that. We just thought, that band is so cool and that band is not as cool and they've sold out, man, and things like that, But so I'm curious because I've noticed how and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but I've actually not at all. But a lot of bands I was listening to, including Hole, especially, it was, and just so you know, I've barely listened to anything from Hole except, I mainly listened to Pretty on the Inside. So that was, for me, that was the best album, and it still is. So it's kind of it's exactly, so all that intensity. And Mazzy Star has also intense, but in a completely different kind of vibe, But to me, they're kind of dark,
Yeah.
And again, I mean this not in a bad way at all. It's that this side is important too. But I've been wondering, like, how has this truly affected me? Like even growing up, listening to this angry or really depressed or very sad or dreamy music, like am I still carrying that like kind of to a fault in my adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering, like, for people who have played in bands, like, so with that that purity of energy, do you feel like it has impacted you, like on a personal, maybe emotional, psychological level?
Well, I don't know when this started, but I do have tendencies to have depression, but nothing. When it comes along, I recognize it and I understand it. So it's not. But I think, like in the superheroines, it got really dark. At this part, and here's another thing. I feel like nobody, like one time my friend said to me, well, my ex, she said, you would be susceptible to a cult. And I'm like, so that is so not true, because there's no way. That's just, nobody can, like, okay. So anyways, the reason I'm bringing that up is in the superheroines, Eva, the singer, co-singer, writer, founder, she wrote a song called The Night Stalker, and Richard Ramirez is the serial killer. Okay, so that's not my thing. Like, I'm like, I went to court with her once, and he was there, and it was for his court thing. And I'm like, no, I don't like this. This is disgusting. I know what he did to people, and I can't go into that darkness. The darkness I could go into is exploring the tendencies that we have in ourselves. I don't bring someone else's darkness in. I have no interest in that. I don't want. I'm a relatively positive, person. So when someone brings in negativity, I feel like it's vampiric, and I'm like, no, I can't have that around me. So, so I wouldn't say that it did do anything to me, or psychically. I don't think I absorbed it. I think that what was happening behind the scene became more devastating to me. Because Courtney, for Whole, she wanted to get out of that and offer a more pop sense because she wanted to be famous and rich, and that just wasn't my interest either. You know, I don't want to manufacture songs so the people will like it. It's like, if you can't express what you have, then why do it, you know?
Yeah.
And and money helps. We all know money can be helpful, but that wasn't my main goal. Same thing with art. It helps, but so I don't think, I have a feeling you might think for you, and you could tell me, that the darkness did affect you in the music, because you were into death metal, you said, and the grunge, to me, grunge didn't seem like death metal. It seemed more like slight depression thing going on in hovering, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's more like I'm questioning all this, and I'm just observing, like looking at who I was and how I was like what I've been exposing myself to. But I shouldn't say it like that also, because I was also expressing something through, you know, when I was listening to the first example, because there's a whole bunch of them, but you know, like that Soundgarden song, Fell on Black Days, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I was, I don't know, about 16, and I kept repeating that to myself, you know, because it felt true, you know. It felt real.
Yeah.
So, but you know that line on whether it is real and you're just expressing it, but then you cross that line and you start building it up, building that story in yourself, and you make it your own story, you know?
No, I could see that. And there was a time, I mean, and then, you know, I mean, I guess that wasn't so far-fetched for Chris Cornell. I mean, and that was one of my first tours, opening with Soundgarden. The band I was in, Sylvia Jimcosa Band, we opened for Soundgarden, and I think it was their first record, which was really very Sabbath tinged, really good. And Chris really stuck to himself. He was, you know, always at the payphone and maybe talking to his wife. I don't know, but he was very kind of just dark. And the rest of the band were super friendly, really nice. And not saying anything was wrong with Chris. I understand wanting quiet and your peace. I get it. But maybe that's where it fell on Black, you know. I mean, that's a great song, though, but I can see.
Yeah.
And then years ago, and I can't remember which band, if it was Ozzy Osbourne or Judas Priest, I don't know. Something happened where a teenager committed suicide or something, and they took the musician to court over it, saying your music did, you know, inspired this in this kid. So I mean, so what you're saying, yes, there probably is some validity to it, but for me, it didn't happen that way. But I can understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's what the feeling that I got from listening to you. That outsider in an outsider world kind of feel, like maybe it's what kind of allowed you to thrive. Because to me, like I'm looking at your art, you're a prolific painter. I love like all the colors and the life in all you do. So like you clearly didn't die of an overdose.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So
I may as well have been in Fugazi or something. Like I was, like I wasn't doing drugs or drinking, and I didn't really do anything until I was like probably 20 or something, and had a little bit of alcohol, and it didn't really mean anything to me. And then drugs, maybe smoke a little pot, and to this day I'll smoke a little bit, but it's not something that, I just didn't seem to need that. What I needed was to just work and create. And that felt like my drug, But I've had plenty friends overdose or, commit suicide. And
Yeah.
oddly enough,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
guess.
know how I can't really judge suicide either. I can't. I used to think it would be easy. I'm like, God, if you want to commit suicide, and you can look at people from very poor to super rich, and suicide does not know either one. They know both. And so to say, well, you could just travel or do this, no, you're stuck in here and you can't see the light. It's hard, but.
Yeah. Well, I guess, some people, of course, like what you said about for Chris Cornell, for example. Like for me, like of course I don't know anything about him on a personal level, but like it feels like it was so authentic what he was singing about, that it's like if you have to carry that type of energy on a 24/7 basically, you might have to find ways to kind of help yourself regulate yourself, like step out of that super intense energy. And maybe the drugs in a weird way, maybe they help, I guess, or kind of bring relief, and like, so in a way it kind of makes sense that a lot of those really intense stories, like they don't end very well, or they end prematurely, I don't know.
Well, because if the drugs are stabilizing at first and you feel so good, it just ends up with any addiction. It just ends up going like that. It goes like this, and then
It's funny. We were talking about magic before, and just by the way, like I'm not an expert on magic. It's just an interest of mine, and I like talking with magicians.
He does both. Okay, no, yeah, I could picture you in a death metal band, and you're like. And then you're like performing all these tricks.
No. I don't play death metal. I like a lot of music, like a lot of it. But what I was gonna say, the thing is like the like ending in a like not in a very good way, and the drugs thing also. It's something we've seen in magicians also, like some of the most well-known, and I don't like, I'm sure there's maybe some of my past guests actually that could tell us a lot more about that. But if you take Aleister Crowley, who's been, like, you've heard the name, we all kind of know him, he did die a heroin addict,
Hey.
And so we kind of see this. It's and to me it's all about this channeling of energies, so that's why I was saying the more I learn about magic, the more I relate it to music, and I'm like, okay, people are doing magic and they don't know, because the magic thing it's not what most people think. It's not about like just make things float around, or or
magic
or
I don't want right.
Sometimes it's about getting how did Douglas
well, magic with
that?
the K. What is the definition of magic with the K?
My God, I might be the wrong guy to ask. I'm gonna try to answer though, because we're on the topic. I think actually Aleister Crowley said that it's, oh my God, I should look it up, but I'll just kind of paraphrase it.
When you get
that
your podcast, you'll have someone looking it up for you really quick.
Yeah, when I get the studio.
When you get it, which is that. No, go
that's
ahead.
my.
Yeah, No, you don't.
So
You're going to use your brain. You don't got Elon Musk like putting a chip in your head. Okay, go ahead.
No chip for me. So he said something like magic is, oh my God, I'm going to get comments and emails, but whatever. It's basically having an effect on physical reality and physical manifestation through the activation of will, So you have an intention, and then there's ways to kind of amplify that manifestation. Like Crowley was big on sex magic also, because the moment, and again, I'm not a magician, I'm just saying, I don't think I'm wrong, but the moment of the orgasm, by the way, not by the way, but sorry, my English is, for example, the moment of orgasm is such an intense thing, an intense, like even on a metaphysical aspect, that it can be used to kind of channel a specific intention, like at the moment of.
Well, it's like you would harness the energy or something, maybe.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of harnessing and then releasing it at the moment. And I've never done that. I just know about this stuff a little.
Yeah.
So basically it's, and I love also, there's another artist, Alan Moore. He's a writer. He's written a lot of books, but also like writing for comic books. Also created a lot of very well-known series, like V for Vendetta, or anyways, like some of them have been made into very big movies. And when he turned 40, he said he became a magician, and he talks about magic a lot. And he said that, like just the spell, the term, like I put a spell,
Yeah.
While spelling, the link between spelling and just saying words, is very, very important, very central, I believe, to the practice of magic and of music, So putting words to, or just creating a general feel, in magic, through music, or painting, when someone is kind of captivated within that.
Is that where spell originated? Like, I mean, saying put a spell on you, it's like how you use the words to maybe direct it, or no?
I believe the original idea is because it's the manipulation of energies through speech, basically,
Yeah.
So
hence like a cult or something, but not necessarily.
Well, manipulation, I mean, not necessarily to manipulate people to do one's will, but because it can be like a very personal thing. You just
you mean, that would, see, to me, then instead of spell, I would picture like manifestation, because spell, like all I picture is like Twilight Zone, and then that guy wanted that woman to fall in love, and he's like, oh my God, can you get rid of her already? So, but yeah, okay, so I think I'm getting it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess because it's much wider and simpler than we think, all the magic thing. Some people, like, they get really deep in ceremonial stuff, and they get very specific about how to do the rituals and stuff like that. But there's also something called chaos magic, which is a bit more, if I get it correctly, a bit more intuitive, and is much more akin and very very tight, I think, with art, like for example, the sigils, like charging a sigil. You create this symbol and you charge it with an energy. To me, like, basically like a painting, whether the artist notices it or not, is kind of that, it's you're taking this. I'm not going to tell you what you're doing when you're painting, by the way. That's not.
Oh,
I'm not a painter. But you know, like taking that just blank canvas and putting all these colors and these shapes in there, and sometimes the words also. I've noticed in your paintings there's words sometimes also.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, it's it completely jives with magic practice. But most
that's
artists,
spell.
they
Yeah.
don't know that they do.
Oh yeah. I'm like, I'm gonna put spell into my work and get people, But I think that it seems like when I hear magic the way you're saying it, it sounds like people that are trying, that have, or they've come to know themselves enough where they can utilize these tools. I don't know though, because I mean, and how interesting, he's like, I'm 40, I'm going to be a magician. And it's, I mean, where did that come? Well, I don't know all his work, so I shouldn't say that. I don't know where it came from, but.
Well, for his explanation is that he didn't want to do, like, it was his, he felt his midlife crisis coming, and he didn't want to do something like basic and cliche as getting a motorcycle or starting a band, or, so he thought, like, I'm going to become completely mad, and I'm going to be a magician, and I'm going to tell people that I'm a magician. And
there you go. Good to hear that someone's branching out in their midlife.
Yeah, at least it's original.
I know, I'm thankful. I don't know him, but I thought that was pretty good, because I was like, oh God, did he buy a Corvette or something? Okay, got it. The motorcycle.
I wrote a book when I got like 42, 45, So
wait, how old were you?
Oh, last year.
And you wrote a book? That was your, I don't know.
That was my midlife crisis thing. Yeah.
Really? God, congratulations. That's good. I mean, I have to say, I don't know your book. I've heard mention of it, but from what I saw, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about self-study, self-awareness. Is that any close to ideas of?
Yeah, I mean, the subtitle is. What am I doing? I got Jill Emery here, and I'm telling you about
I'm just trying to understand these midlife crises, because.
Yeah. Well, it's basically the subtitle of it is The Mystic's Path of Self-Knowledge. So it's about but it's mostly a book of reflections and trying to steer people towards finding themselves. Like I'm not gonna tell you who you are. I can't tell you that.
Right.
But asking the right questions and. So,
well, you really went into it good then. I mean, because you went from like talking about music and darkness and does it stay with you to like growing, and not saying that was you, but from what we were talking about, and then, knowing yourself, finding yourself, helping people. But because I'm really interested in that as well, but I also know that I have to just do what I do, and not, because I get sad when that's my own problem. But when I want people to do the same, because I'm like, God, you're going to die. Why not want to know? Why not? But then I got to be honest. I'm like, who am I? 1 minute I'm like, I totally get it. I got it. And then I'm like, next minute I'm like, I have no clue. I'm lost. I don't know who I am. And
well, so maybe to me, like that's why I wanted to speak with you, because all that what you're saying there, like I feel, well, it's more of a feeling thing, but like, like that's basically about it. Like it's the mystic's path that I'm describing is exactly what you said. Like. So, and there is a bit of, in the book, like, sometimes I'm a bit hard on the reader, like, oh, you think you know? and you think you know what's good for others. Well, maybe you want to look again, So, and to me, it's kind of drives me to another question I had is because the second, bringing back to the book, the second chapter is called Of Punks and Mystics, because I feel like I often say that punk and again, grunge in quotes, more the DIY spirit of it and the authenticity. That's authenticity. That's that's what informed my spirituality much more than any esoteric book out there, So that DIY spirit, that authenticity thing, integrity to what feels right, is at the essence for me of spirituality. And so I see a lot of spirituality in punk, So I was wondering if you well, first of all, maybe I don't know if you would describe yourself as a spiritual person. You seem like you are to me.
Okay.
But do you get a spiritual vibe in punk and all those movements from the past, but they're still,
Well, I think, first of all, I think the spiritual aspect is there, but I also think it's about practice. It's something you have to cultivate. The dust, the little speck is there, but it needs cultivation, because otherwise you just sit there and say, what happened with spiritual? Why am, I work really hard on myself through meditation or spiritualism. And then the next minute I'll fly off the handle and I'm like, well, what just happened to the person that was right here?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, okay, that is a part of me, but what I don't like is the strong reaction. You could still have a strong reaction without flying off the handle. And with punk, I think that's, when I was 15, I got into punk, and that was 77 or something. And it felt like, this is my world. I'm understood. And I think it was because the DIY aspect of it, it made me think I could do anything, and I didn't have to follow, like Alan Watts says, I didn't have to follow the programs that I'm put into. Everything is a program. And two, punk probably became a program. It happens to everything, something they'll start off earnest somehow gets corrupted, whether punk did or not. I can't, that is also an opinion, so.
Yeah.
But yes,
well, it feels like there's an essence,
Yeah.
The essence of punk, and, whatever happened to it afterwards, I you mentioned Fugazi. I heard for sure, one day I'm gonna I really want to have Ian MacKaye on the show, because he's been such an inspiring person.
I saw him interviewed by this. I wasn't even going to watch it, and I'm like, this kid interviewed him. The kid was 10. It was such a good interview. Did you see that one? It was so good, and I
maybe it's not the same one, but yeah.
Well, I love the way that Ian didn't write him off as this kid. And the kid was really smart, though. But it was Ian couldn't wait to just talk and have a conversation. And I love that. So I think maybe it would be nice if you guys could. It's not like I can call him up and go, hey, dude. But I think it would be great,
I'll reach out for sure.
There you go.
But because I was bringing him up because of how he described punk, in its essence, and he said, it doesn't really have anything to do with style or specific types of music. To him, Jazz can be punk, rap can be punk, you know. So that's how I kind of perceive it. Also, the maybe a bit of the rebellious spirit. Again, I think the this authenticity thing and integrity is at the center of it. So I don't know. For me, those are very, very spiritual things and very important. Also to remain, humble and honest with oneself. You know, that this dedication to, and the DIY thing also, I think, is very punk.
I could see how it meshes, like spirituality growing out of it. Because it's not necessarily this like formed religion thing. It's more within and also what you're presenting or taking in. It's more personal to me. And so I could see how that line can go through it. Yeah.
Cool. Oh yeah, you mentioned meditation.
Yeah.
So can you tell me about your practice? What?
Well,
do you have like a specific kind of meditation that you do, or?
I do. Well, I do different kinds, but when I initially was trying to do meditation, I just went to this place that was doing it for free, and the guy was trying to teach us. And during the time, my dad had cancer, and I was like, I just got to go do something to decompress or whatever, get rid of stress. And so I did that, and it didn't stick with me. And my partner now, she lives in Toronto. I mean, she's, Canadian, but she kind of helped me with spurred me on into meditation, because she went and stayed at a ashram and they did meditation every single day for hours and hours, and so it's helped me. But then this is like, do you know Sam Harris?
Sure.
Okay, so he has a meditation app, but his meditation that he's projecting or handing to people is more based on consciousness. It's not on let's relax, so it's getting, just knowing that this is all consciousness, and it's everything in your head. The world is not inside here, we're all a part of it. So that's really worked well for me. And then I'll do other meditations separately. Yeah.
Does it? Do you do? How do I word this? Okay, because I've heard you also mention on other interviews that a lot of your work in painting, I don't know if it was the same for music, but is informed by a lot of daydreaming also. So I was curious about how maybe like meditation, does it have a thing to do with that, or is it like the daydreaming? Is it a kind of meditation for you, or?
Well, I used to think that, but and again in this meditation app, they're like, don't beat yourself up. The thoughts are coming in. Take the thought and focus, and it'll dissolve. Okay, so it also means that everything is not so immediate. We're made to feel everything is now, hurry up, and it's the end of the world if not, that whole fear of missing out, whatever. So, but daydreaming's always been there for me my whole life. And so again, another thing that they married, like daydreaming and meditation, but they are different. So when I'm to paint, I do daydream, and I also sit there and think, well, what would a scenario be? And it'll almost, a lot of times I'll laugh because it's funny to me. I mean, I mean, I have this painting of Alice Coltrane and Alan Watts, and they both were spiritual, but you know, so they're communicating where she's like playing this harp and in his pipe is like words coming out, and they're trying to like go like this between words and music and spirituality, like combining them. So it made me laugh, but it's also really serious that because I don't think they ever really were doing that, but that's a form of daydreaming. I had to make that up, you know, it wasn't, you know, so that's kind of where what I mean by daydreaming and creating.
Imagine how cool it would have been, like a spoken word kind of thing with Alan Watts and Alice Coltrane.
Yeah.
Well, you made it happen. You made it happen.
Oh, it's there.
I was wondering also because you know, like it's a big subject, but you know the notion of beauty. It's kind of a tricky thing, you know, and I guess culturally maybe you and I have shared influences, I guess. And because I see a lot of actually, I didn't know that painting I saw on the back of the Pretty on the Inside album cover was from you. So I'm like, really? Like, by the way, like me, like, and my friends, like, we've copied this, like, on our, like, backpacks and, like,
oh my God.
yeah, it's cool and stuff like that. So, like, all the way up north in Longueuil, like, tiny city, like, South Shore of Montreal, there was some of your paintings on our backpacks. So that's
that's
crazy.
sweet. That's
and our skateboards and yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, for sure.
I had my days of that too, like seeing someone's stuff and being in, like, you know, just doing it in school and not paying attention and going, man, look at their stuff, you know. It's that's sweet.
Well, that said, because I have like it's kind of maybe a difficult question, and just if it's a bad question, just ignore it. But I'm wondering, like, how, because you know, this again, I'm gonna say the grungy feel, you know, of your art. I guess I mean it more in a literal way than the cultural thing, you know. Yep. But you know, like the scratches and the quote unquote imperfections and the, you know, like for me, like I really resound to that, you know, like, and it's funny because for me it's been transferred from music. I really like when I do music. I still do music a little. I like the really grungy sounds and dirty, you know, like organic thing. So how do you decide what's beautiful? How do you see, like, how would you okay, that's the question actually. What is beauty to you? Like, how would you define beauty? That's a hard one.
Well, I mean, to get to the artwork part, I think, I guess it goes with beauty. I mean, the imperfections, like I'm not, you know, when you know, you could look at a cat that's like this, I mean, and I'll say a cat because I love cats, but like, well, I had a Siamese, she was so beautiful, but then right next to her could be a cat with one eye and like all fucked up, like, you know, only because I know a bunch of cats, but this doesn't sound right. But what is beauty there? It's like they're both beautiful. I mean, for what they are. And so getting into imperfections, I think showing the scratching, or there's multiple layers of paint on my art. And it's like people and there's multiple layers. And whether you see it or not, but also in this day and age with social media, everybody wants to present like, I'm so successful, I'm so look how fun, everything is fun in my life. But then, I'm starting to see a lot of people are like, I'm so depressed, or, oh, this or that. But for the most part, people are projecting this, like, my success, another great thing. And, oh, hey, look how good I look. I got this done or fixed. And it's, to me, why not see the imperfections? Because what are we hiding? I mean, we all have imperfections, and so that's a part of life, and I don't mind showing that or seeing that. And we're taught in school or coloring, don't go outside the lines, don't stay in the lines. And so that to me just doesn't do it. I don't care about staying in the lines, and I care about expressing, and however it may land. I mean, of course I have to like it and mold it into what I like, and there are thoughts going into it, but also I just don't want it to be so precious, and so
I think again, it feels like that integrity thing again. Like that time being that integrity towards life in its yeah, and in how it is, like, and it's, I think that's what's interesting for me to also in spirituality, like this to develop this ability to look at ourselves in that same way, like, and without like judging, like oh, this shouldn't be like this, or this, having these preconceived idea of what it is, and just so that's why I like your work, because it's what you see is what you get, and for me, like, the link with spirituality with that is this is also a part of spiritual growth, to become able to look at oneself, look at others, look at life.
absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I have some friends that I wish because I could see like traumas they've had, but I can't do anything. But I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, if you work on that, if you examine it, and it doesn't feel good, and maybe get someone to help you through it, you'll be carrying less baggage. You'll just feel so much freer. I mean, I can remember being in debt years ago, and once I got rid of my debt, I never went back, and it was like freedom. I just felt free, and I don't have that baggage. And that's how it feels when you deal with, when you examine yourself, and you're able to, I'm not, how do you say it? Even in meditation, they say that you're not just meditating for yourself, you're meditating for those that you come in contact with. So working on yourself, or knowing yourself, or thinking the best you can, I think just puts the world in a better space, even if it's just your world, which is a collective consciousness of,
Clearly. You've told me that you've listened to at least a bit of the interview with Mike Cleland, also known as the Owl Guy, and he brought up like an expression that I really love, because I was wondering, I was thinking maybe the podcast is about mysticism, but it sounds a bit pompous, and I wanted something a bit more grounded. And he used the expression, he was referring to something pretty specific, but that expression, highly charged human experiences. And I'm like, that's a bit more, I'm a bit more like it, because it's something kind of extraordinary that happens, or that maybe some people are looking for to experience in life, So that said, I'm curious, like, can you recall having either in on stage, or even just in your life in general, one of those highly charged human experiences?
Oh God. Honestly, I feel like I get them a lot in general, in small doses though. I know, can you get highly charged in small doses? Because to me, what it would mean is having people reveal themselves, like peel back the layers. And when I can get that even with a stranger for the second, just for a second, that to me is very exciting because what are we doing? Just ghosts wandering around the world and life? But you'd be exhausted if you were constantly having highly charged moments.
Yeah.
But there's something about the connection, uh, whether it's with someone you've known forever and you wake up out of a daze because you're so used to, I know you're going to say that, I know this, but then when something surprises you, it's like, I just woke up. That was great. Wow. Or a stranger that I don't know and we just communicated and it just felt so real and heartfelt. It's fantastic. So, I mean, I think that's what I would think in my mind. Would you have an example?
Well, I personally, for sure, I have moments I've experienced, whether in meditation or in strangely enough, in very moments of very deep depressions. Also, that things have happened that they're kind of not benchmarks, but little spots that I say, okay, like a shift happened at that time.
Like pivotal, like it could just go like that.
Yeah. So yeah, I've come, like I know that life was a bit different after that, So maybe that's what I meant, by the way, by the expression. So did you have, like, because I just to answer your question, what you described to me, again, like that's kind of how I describe mysticism, like being aware of those little sparkles, and it's more of a constant thing. And for me, like the like running after those crazy experiences, like why, like to entertain yourself, to
right.
Like to, so for me, what you're describing is a mystic's way of seeing life, but maybe I have a weird way of seeing mysticism. But
no, I mean, I think that makes sense. But also, when you said depression and the benchmark, to me, I think I related to that really for a second by thinking maybe for me, and I don't know for you, but maybe that moment came when almost like the fever, like a fever is lifting, and then you're like, oh my God, this is what it feels like to feel good. It's like when you're lifting out of the depression, maybe it's like a renewal or something. I don't know, but that's what that reminded me, for me, how that would feel. That for me, I don't know for you, but
clearly it's just that I have this maybe I'm not gonna tell it now, but there's an experience I've been through when I maybe more than 20 years ago, and in very, very deep state of depression. And it's basically what you just described, that kind of feeling of relief, but it came after like really like delving into it, and like, I'm not gonna run, okay, life right now is really dark, and I delved into it completely, and I abandoned myself to it. And one day maybe I'll tell the whole story, because it's kind of a long one, but woke up the next day and things were different.
No, that's amazing that you went into it instead of just like, but that's the point. It's like, maybe, if I'm not misunderstanding, like you were trying to not just numb it or bury it. It was like, okay, what is this dark, and then maybe came out of it the next day. I mean,
Well, I guess how I could put it, and I think it's cool that we're talking about this, even though I'm being mindful of your time, but um, because it's especially for quote unquote spiritual people, like they get that feeling that, and even it's even more present for people who believe in the law of attraction, you know. So if you're depressed and you stay in there and like all you have those dark thoughts, and you're gonna create more of it. So they kind of struggle, and I'm gonna talk for myself. I used to struggle, you know, to get out of it, not to create more, you know, and just because I shouldn't be like that. I'm a spiritual person. I know this is all illusion, and I want to create good things, and you know. But when I started doing that, when I was, I don't know, about 17, 18, like getting into the new agey kind of stuff, you know, my depression got way worse, you know.
Oh my God, look at your cat. So cute.
Yeah.
Like,
A little visit from the cat. He does that, yeah.
You always
So-
see like claws coming out.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. So basically just I realized my life was not getting better, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna confront it. I'm gonna confront those thoughts, and I came out. Not only that I came out alive, but came out even more alive than I was before that, I think. And since then, I mean, depression, I don't know if for you, if it's something that you feel you have more and more, not control. Control is a kind of a weird word, but mastery over, you know, like you don't get as deep or for as long as, you know, like
Right. And that's
with
about
time.
right. And that's what I try and work on. And I try and work on like I said, not, you know, flying off the handle. If someone, you know, you could be somewhere and someone's doing something not okay, maybe like being cruel to their animal, and it's just like fly off the handle. But also there should be a way of handling things like I think there should be conversation, but then how do you have a conversation with a person that doesn't know that is not okay? But yeah, so recognizing when the depression comes, recognizing is part of the battle. So if you recognize it, it can diffuse, I think, quicker. And also, I just, you know, you could listen to Alan Watts and get depressed, and because you're like, wait a minute, that's everything I was so opposite of what I was told, and I bought into, and now I'm just coming out of this up for air, and it's like, what the heck? Now it should be a good thing, but it's also like I've been programmed, you know, and so. But then it's exciting because you get to work on deprogramming and realize that you don't have to be in these genres, these veins of things that you're told to do, and it doesn't make you, well, yeah,
more authentic.
yeah. Well, then, am I authentic? Or is this real? Like, so, you know, then you start saying, I'm going to die. Well, yeah, we're all going to die. That's, you know, but anyways, it's just shocking. It's okay to die. I mean, it's normal, but what I can't understand, and there's no answer, but why do we build these relationships or these things, and then, you know, and then go into consciousness? Okay, they're gone, you know, but I know, you know, I'm just trying to get tools to understand, you know, it's all happening, and I watch it, and one day someone will watch this just float away, you know? So but they should really talk about stuff like that in school instead of not broaching the subject until your grandma dies or something, or your cat. You know?
Those things, those basic things, even for me, like of course I'm a maybe I'm a bit biased, but the self-knowledge part was something that I lacked in school, and I think a lot of people do.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Listen, I'm gonna let you go, but before I have to be a good host and ask you, where can people find you, find your work? If you have any events, even though they're local event, there would be local events or whatever, like anything you want people to know.
Yeah, I mean, I do local. Well, I'm going to be doing a show in Sierra Madre, where I used to live, out by Pasadena, in March 2nd, group show. And I think that other than that, you can find my work on Instagram. And I think if you put in Jill Emery, but it's under, and everyone always asks me why, and people call me Sally, but it's under Sally Gotsta.
Yeah.
I don't know why it made me laugh. I don't know what she got, but she got something.
I've been wondering that.
I know. What is Sally Gotts? But so it's under Sally Gotsta on Instagram, and then same on Etsy. I sell my work on there, and you could really just put in Jill Emery and it'll pop up. But it's also Sally Gotsta.
Cool. Actually, like, it's gonna be in the show notes and the video description. So
nice.
The links will be there. I'm sorry.
Okay. What's your cat's name?
Oh, this one is BB.
BB? Oh.
Yeah. It's weird. It wasn't his name initially, but like he had a weird name, and then my partner, she just started calling him BB, and that's stuck.
That's
yeah. He's slowly becoming the star of the show. He's gonna steal my job before long.
I know. Mine were all one. They just kept walking by, and then they didn't jump up here like they normally would. But that's okay. They're so cute. All right. Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having this show, your podcast, and I think it's really interesting stuff you bring up. So thank you.
Thanks to you. I mean, it was a bit experimental for me.
Yeah.
Today, but I'll say to people, expect more talk with artists, because I think this conversation is important. Yeah.
Ian's probably next, so you never know.
I'll try my best.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
So you've made it to the end of this Hopscotch Chronicles podcast episode, and I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed doing it. And I thank you so much for your attention, and I hope you're benefiting in a way or another from this conversation. So if you'd like to follow my work, whether on this podcast or my personal work, you can go to Twitter or X and follow me at Domi_Vallee, DOMI_Vallee. Same username for Instagram if you prefer that platform. You can also go to the official website for the podcast, which is hopscotchchronicles.com. And if you'd like to support the podcast as well as my personal work, you can do so by subscribing to my Patreon. The address is patreon.com/Dominic Vallee, DOMINIC Vallee, VALLEE. There you'll find video and audio versions of the episodes without any commercials, as well as special episodes on every Sunday where I take my Sunday afternoon tea with you guys. All right, thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep reaching for the light.